Hey there! It's webinar number 5, Nutritional Therapy Foundation, Fats. Today we're going to be talking all about fat, and I'm going to give you the skinny on fat, pun intended. Today it's time to bust through some of those fat and cholesterol myths and shed some light on why we need quality fat sources in our diet every day. Fats from animal and vegetable sources provide a concentrated source of energy in the diet. They also provide the building blocks for cell membranes and a variety of hormones and hormone-like substances. Fats, as part of a meal, slow down absorption so that we can go longer without feeling hungry. In addition, they act as carriers for important fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Dietary fats are needed for the conversion of carotene to vitamin A, for mineral absorption, and for a host of other processes. However, for far too long, our society has villainized fat. For decades now, we have been taught to believe that fat makes us fat. Politically correct nutrition, according to the government, is based on the assumption that we should reduce our intake of fats, particularly saturated fats from animal sources. Fats from animal sources also contain cholesterol, presented as the twin villain of the civilized diet. Here's some myths that we have been led to believe. Myth: people with high cholesterol are more prone to heart attacks. Truth: young and middle-aged men with cholesterol levels over 300 are slightly more at risk for heart attacks. Those who have cholesterol levels just below 300 are at no greater risk than those whose cholesterol is very low. For elderly men and for women of all ages, high cholesterol is associated with a longer lifespan. Here's another myth for you. Cholesterol and saturated fat clog arteries. Truth: there is very little cholesterol or saturated fat in the arterial plaque or clogs. Most of the material is a calcium deposit akin to lime, and most of the fatty acids are unsaturated. Another myth: eating saturated fat and cholesterol-rich foods will cause cholesterol levels to rise and make people more susceptible to heart disease. Truth: many studies show no relationship between diet and cholesterol levels. There is no evidence that saturated fat and cholesterol-rich food contribute to heart disease. As Americans have cut back on saturated fat and cholesterol-rich foods, rates of heart disease have gone up. Myth: cholesterol-lowering drugs have saved many lives. Truth: in 2 recent trials involving over 10,000 subjects, cholesterol lowering did not result in any improvement in outcome. Myth: countries that have a high consumption of animal fat and cholesterol have higher rates of heart disease. Truth: there are many exceptions to this observation, such as France and Spain. Furthermore, an association is not the same as a cause. In wealthy countries where people eat a lot of animal foods, many other factors exist that can contribute to heart disease. And here's some more truth bombs for you. Before 1920, coronary heart disease was rare in America. So rare that when a young internist named Paul Dudley White introduced the German electrocardiograph to his colleagues at Harvard University, they advised him to concentrate on a more profitable branch of medicine. The new machine revealed the presence of arterial blockages, thus permitting early diagnosis of coronary heart disease. But in those days, clogged arteries were a medical rarity, and White had to search for patients who could benefit from his new technology. During the next 40 years, however, the incidence of coronary heart disease rose dramatically, so much so that by the mid-50s, heart disease was the leading cause of death among Americans. Today, heart disease causes at least 40% of all U.S. deaths. If, as we have been told, heart disease results from the consumption of saturated fats, one would expect to find a corresponding increase in animal fat in the American diet. Actually, the reverse is true. During the 60-year period from 1910 to 1970, The proportion of traditional animal fat in the American diet declined from 83% to 62%, and butter consumption plummeted from 18 pounds per person per year to 4. During the past 80 years, dietary cholesterol intake has increased only 1%. During the same period, the percentage of dietary vegetable oils in the form of margarine, shortening, and refined oils increased about 400%, while the consumption of sugar and processed foods increased about 60%. Clearly, something is wrong with what we read and see in our mainstream media. Marketing and media schemes are profiting off of these lies to sell their low-fat concoctions and cholesterol-free foods. The notion that saturated fats cause heart disease as well as cancer is just plain wrong. But it is true that some fats are bad for us. So let's talk about fats specifically for a second. I just included this graphic because I think it's cute and it's an example of good fat, but let's talk about fats. Fats or lipids are a class of organic substances that are not soluble in water. Simply put, fatty acids are chains of carbon atoms with hydrogen atoms filling the available bonds. Most fat in our bodies and in the food we eat is in the form of triglycerides, that is, 3 fatty acid chains attached to a glycerol molecule. Elevated triglycerides in the blood have been positively linked to proneness to heart disease, but these triglycerides do not come directly from dietary fats. They are made in the liver from any excess sugars that have not been used for energy. The source of these excess sugars is in any food containing carbohydrates, particularly refined sugar and white flour. Fatty acids are classified as saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated. All fats and oils, whether of vegetable or animal origin, are some combination of these three. In general, animal fats, such as butter, lard, and tallow, contain about 40 to 60% saturated fat and are solid at room temperature. Vegetable oils from northern climates contain more of the polyunsaturated fatty acids and are liquid at room temperature. But vegetable oils from the tropics are highly saturated, such as coconut oil. These fats are liquid in the tropics, but hard as butter in northern climates. The public has been fed a great deal of misinformation about the relative virtues of saturated fats versus polyunsaturated oils. Political correct dietary folks tell us that the polyunsaturated oils are good for us and that the saturated fats cause cancer and heart disease. This goes back all the way to the day of Ancel Keys, who started this whole low-fat craziness with his skewed research and studies, but that's a story for another day. But the result that came from this is the fundamental changes that have occurred in our Western diet. We now typically as Americans eat what we call the SAD diet, the standard American diet. At the turn of this century, most of the fatty acids in the diet were either saturated or monounsaturated, primarily from butter, lard, tallows, coconut oil, and small amounts of olive oil. Today, most of the fats in the diet are polyunsaturated from vegetable oils derived mostly from soy as well as from corn, safflower, and canola. Our excess consumption of polyunsaturated oils has been shown to contribute to a large number of disease conditions, including increased cancer and heart disease, immune system dysfunction, damage to the liver, reproductive organs and lungs, digestive disorders, depressed learning ability, impaired growth, and weight gain. The reason they are causing so many problems is because they tend to become oxidized or rancid when subjected to heat, oxygen, and moisture, as in cooking and processing. Rancid oils are characterized by free radicals. These are compounds that are extremely reactive chemically and act as marauders in the body by attacking cell membranes and red blood cells and cause damage in the DNA-RNA strands, thus triggering mutations in tissue, blood vessels, and skin. This damage leads to premature aging, sets the stage for tumors, is linked with autoimmune diseases such as Parkinson's, arthritis, and Alzheimer's, and initiates the buildup of plaque in the blood vessels. And oh, let's mention a few more free radical things that free radical damage can result in, such as an increased tendency to form blood clots, inflammation, high blood pressure, irritation of the digestive tract, sterility, cell proliferation, cancer, and weight gain. We now know that it isn't fat that is the problem. Fat is not making us fat. It is the quality of the fat. So why are polyunsaturated fats so bad, and what foods are we talking about specifically? We're talking about the margarines, shortenings, spreads, vegetable oils, and low-fat dairy products and trans fats, hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated fats that we find in a lot of processed foods. You know, those things that we all grew up on, like Crisco and skim milk. I totally grew up on those things. I grew up on margarine and Crisco and skim milk and vegetable oil because that's what my parents thought was right at the time. That's what they had been being told, bombarded with from marketing schemes and from our government. So let's talk about what are in these products that are so damaging to us. Let's talk about trans fats. These unnatural fats are formed during the process of partial hydrogenation, which turns liquid vegetable oil into a solid fat. Trans fats contribute to heart disease, cancer, bone problems, hormonal imbalance and skin diseases, infertility, difficulties in pregnancy and problems with lactation, and low birth weight, growth problems, and learning disabilities in children. Recently, a U.S. government panel of scientists determined that man-made trans fats are unsafe at any level. All right, what else? Free radicals. We just talked a little bit about free radicals, but as a recap, they are the result of high-temperature industrial processing of vegetable oils. They contribute to numerous health concerns, including cancer and heart disease. What else is in some of these products? Synthetic vitamins. You see this in cereal, in milk. They tout that they have these vitamins in these products. Synthetic vitamins added to margarine and spreads and other foods often have an opposite effect compared to the natural vitamins in foods like real butter. These foods also contain emulsifiers and preservatives. Numerous additives of questionable safety are added to these foods. Most vegetable shortening is stabilized with preservatives like BHT. These foods also contain hexane and other solvents. These are used in the extraction process, and these industrial chemicals can have toxic effects. Bleach. This one is gross, you guys. The natural color of partially hydrogenated vegetable oil is gray, so manufacturers bleach it to make it white. Yellow coloring is then added to margarine and spreads. I just think about that and it just grosses me out. These foods also contain artificial flavors. These help mask the terrible taste and odor of partially hydrogenated oils and provide a fake butter taste. Also includes mono and diglycerides. These contain trans fats that manufacturers do not have to list on the label. They are used in high amounts in so-called low trans spreads and other foods. So even if something says that it has low trans fats, they can get away with having these other kinds of trans fats in there that they don't have to list on the label. There's also things like soy protein isolate. This highly processed powder is added to low trans fat foods and spreads to give them body. It can contribute to thyroid dysfunction, digestive disorders, and many other health problems. These foods also contain sterols, often added to food to give it a cholesterol-lowering quality, but these estrogen compounds can cause a lot of endocrine/hormone problems. Saturated fats, however, play many important roles in the body chemistry. They constitute at least 50% of the cell membranes, and they are what give our cells necessary stiffness and integrity. They play a vital role in the health of our bones. For calcium to be effectively incorporated into the skeletal structure, at least 50% of the dietary fats should be saturated. They lower LPA, a substance in the blood that indicates proneness to heart disease. They protect the liver from alcohol and other toxins, such as Tylenol. Saturated fats enhance the immune system. and they are needed for the proper utilization of essential fatty acids. It is the preferred food for the heart, which is why the fat around the heart muscle is highly saturated. The heart draws on this reserve of fat in times of stress. And they have important antimicrobial properties. They protect us against harmful microorganisms in the digestive tract. And what about foods that contain cholesterol that are supposed to be so bad for us? Here, too, the public has been misinformed. Our blood vessels can become damaged in a number of ways through irritations caused by free radicals or viruses, or because they are structurally weak. And when this happens, the body's natural healing substance steps in to repair the damage. That substance is cholesterol. Cholesterol is a high molecular weight alcohol that is manufactured in the liver and in most human cells. Like saturated fats, the cholesterols we make and consume play many vital roles in our body. Cholesterol in the cell membrane gives our cells necessary stiffness and stability. When the diet contains an excess of polyunsaturated fatty acids, these replace saturated fatty acids in the cell membrane so that the cell walls actually become flabby. When this happens, cholesterol from the blood is driven into the tissues to give them structural integrity. This is why serum cholesterol levels may go down temporarily when we replace saturated fats with polyunsaturated oils in the diet. Cholesterol acts as a precursor to vital corticosteroids. These are hormones that help us deal with stress and protect the body against heart disease and cancer, and to the sex hormones like androgen, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. Cholesterol is a precursor to vitamin D, a very important fat-soluble vitamin, needed for healthy bones and nervous system, proper growth, mineral metabolism, muscle tone, insulin production, reproduction, and immune system function. The bile salts are also made from cholesterol. Bile is vital for digestion and assimilation of fats in the diet. Recent research shows that cholesterol acts as an antioxidant and helps protect us against free radical damage that leads to heart disease and cancer. Cholesterol is needed for proper function of serotonin receptors in the brain. Serotonin is the body's natural feel-good chemical. Low cholesterol levels have been linked to aggressive and violent behavior, depression, and suicidal tendencies. Mother's milk is especially rich in cholesterol and contains a special enzyme that helps the baby utilize this nutrient. Babies and children need cholesterol-rich foods throughout their growing years to ensure proper development of the brain and nervous system. And dietary cholesterol plays an important role in maintaining the health of the intestinal wall. This is why low cholesterol vegetarian diets can lead to leaky gut syndrome and other intestinal disorders. So, I hope that you can see by now that cholesterol is not the cause of heart disease, but rather a potent antioxidant, if I can say that word right, weapon. It is a potent antioxidant weapon against free radicals in the blood and a repair substance that helps heal arterial damage. However, like fats, cholesterol may be damaged by exposure to heat and oxygen. This damaged or oxidized cholesterol seems to promote both injury to the arterial cells as well as a pathological buildup of plaque in the arteries. Damaged cholesterol is found in foods like powdered eggs, in powdered milk, and in meats and fats that have been heated to high temperatures in frying and other high-temperature processes. Hopefully now you understand even more fully why a diet full of whole, nutrient-dense foods is the #1 nutritional therapy foundation. Whenever we stray into the world of processed foods, we are simply opening ourselves up to all of these denatured and damaged sugars, flours, fats, and cholesterol that wreak havoc on our bodies. But good fats and cholesterol are good for us. I can't even tell you how many times, because of the way I grew up, I would tell my husband when we were first married, we shouldn't eat the whole egg, we should only eat the egg whites, because I was afraid of the cholesterol in the egg yolk. But boy, was I just fed a lot of garbage that I grew up believing. He would always say, no, the whole egg is good for you, eat the whole egg. And I would just say, whatever, and go about my business, scrambling up my egg whites. But now, with all the education and understanding that I have, I happily eat the whole egg, and I try to get my eggs from local farmers to ensure that they are free-range eggs. So, what is the best way to beat heart disease and cancer and other disease if it's not by lowering our saturated fats and cholesterol? Well, I'm pretty sure you already know the answer to that question. It is by consuming a diet that provides animal foods rich in vitamins B6 and B12 to bolster thyroid function, by daily use of natural sea salt, a good source of usable iodine, to avoid vitamin and mineral deficiencies that make the artery walls more prone to rupture and the buildup of plaque, to include the antimicrobial fats in the diet, and to eliminate processed foods containing refined carbohydrates, oxidized cholesterol, and free radical containing vegetable oils that cause the body to need constant repair. And by all means, you guys, eat more butter. In our nutritional therapy practitioner program, my professor talks about butter all the time, and she laughs, and she says if we, use butter on our final exam or on any of our tests, that she gives us extra credit. Because butter is so nutrient dense, and a lot of us have stopped eating butter. When we eat good quality butter from grass-fed cows like we used to do, it's a rich source of nutrients. These nutrients protect against heart disease and include the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, K, and E, plus lecithin, iodine, and selenium. A Medical Research Council survey showed that men eating butter ran half the risk of developing heart disease as those using margarine. It also helps to prevent cancer, arthritis, osteoporosis, poor thyroid health, poor digestion, poor growth and development, asthma, obesity, and infertility. So pass the butter, please. Don't be afraid to eat butter. I could go on, but I think that I've given you enough to chew on today with this webinar when it comes to all things fat. For your PDF that I'm going to give you guys, it's going to be a list of quality fats, vegetable oils, and animal fats that outline their usefulness and appropriateness in your own food preparation. So you'll want to print out the PDF and keep it handy and close by because it will help you to know how to consume your fats and to remind you that consuming fat does matter and the quality does matter. So just to sum things up for you, basically cereal is for sissies. But just to sum things up, our choice of fats and oils is of extreme importance. Most people, especially infants and growing children, benefit from more fat in the diet rather than less. But the fats we eat must be chosen with care. Avoid all processed foods containing hydrogenated fats and polyunsaturated oils. Instead, use traditional vegetable oils like extra virgin olive oil and small amounts of unrefined flaxseed oil. Acquaint yourself with the merits of coconut oil for baking and with animal fats for occasional frying. Eat egg yolks and other animal fats with the protein to which they are attached. And finally, use as much good quality butter as you like, with the happy assurance that it is a wholesome, even an essential food for you and your whole family. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and be sure to join me for webinar number 6, all about minerals.